form the principles the immortal ideas that he's fought for all his life and that you are all dedicated to as well. He's pointed out that the Federal Reserve, which of course not ought to be just audited but abolished, doesn't just raise our prices, it doesn't just redistribute wealth, as evil as those things are, but it brings about the business cycle. Recessions and depressions are not things that rain down on us from heaven, or maybe I should say rise up from hell. These things are a result of what the Federal Reserve does in its lowering of interest rates. So everybody is out of work, lost their home, is having a very tough time economically. You can thank those birds on Constitution Avenue, how ironic, in Washington, D.C., where the Federal Reserve, it's for the first time, and again, when Ron was first to speak out against the Fed and against Federal Reserve monetary policy, starting when Nixon ended the gold standard and put price and wage controls on in 1971, that's what got Ron into public life. People just thought it was ridiculous. It's boring. It's the name on the bill in your wallet, and that's about it. After all these years of speaking truth to power, for the first time in the history of the central bank, Americans don't like it. They know about it. They don't like it. They don't like Ben Bernanke. That's what Ron Paul did, one man. He turned an entire population against the central bank, and believe me, they are worried. Also, of course, he's spoken out against welfare to the rich, the big banks especially. It seems like these days we live in a bankocracy where everything is being done for the big banks, whether it's in Europe or in our own country or around the world. They're the ones that seem to pull the strings. It's very unpopular. It's not respectable to criticize the big banks. Ron Paul has always done that from the very beginning because he's understood that the banks and their fractional reserve system are in cahoots with the central bank, the Federal Reserve, against the rest of us. They profit not like a normal business does by serving the public with the goods and services they'd like to buy, but through something that's actually a criminal process, and more Americans understand it. Again, of course, Ron Paul. The banksters, exactly right. Every term in Congress, Ron has introduced the Liberty Amendment, which says, abolish the IRS. Ron Paul is not one of those who said, oh, we need, the so-called fair tax. We need the so-called flat tax. We need no tax on our income. And not only because, as he points out, we deserve to keep the fruits of our labor, but because this is the greatest assault on civil liberties, at least until recent developments anyway, on the American people. Everybody is afraid of the IRS. They have you're guilty until you're proven innocent. They can come after anyone. It's not an institution compatible with a free society. Ron Paul, alone in Congress all these years, has kept saying, no IRS. All his life, Ron Paul has been the great enemy of the drug war. And when it was... He opposed it when Nixon brought it back in the modern era. He opposed it when Reagan massively stepped it up. And he pointed out, not only is this wrong from the standpoint of what Mises says in Human Action, that just as we have a right to put what we want into our minds, so we have the right as adults to put what we want into our bodies, and it's none of the government's business. But Ron also pointed out that this was happening under the Reagan administration to abolish financial privacy. They wanted to have no privacy for us in our finances. Ron's position has always been, of course, that we, the people, should have an absolute right to privacy, but the government has no right to privacy. We have the right to know what they're doing. He's called also all his political career for the abolition of the CIA. He is an entirely unconstitutional agency consisting of death squads, lying squads, stealing squads, overthrowing other government squads. And they were promised when the evil Harry Truman set it up, promised, oh, well, this will never do anything, of course, to Americans, they'll just get foreigners. Well, needless to say, that was a lie. And now it's open, CIA offices in every city, spying on Americans, helping read our mail, listen to our phone calls, do black bags on our homes, and they haven't put the TV sets in our living rooms yet, like 1984, but they do have drones flying over our homes. Something else, of course, Ron Paul is opposed. When George W. Bush wanted to establish the Department of Homeland Security, Ron Paul opposed it. He opposed the FELIP agency, TSA, right from the beginning. Said we don't want a socialist security agency. This is up to the airlines to provide security. And indeed, the original hijackings only happened because the government at that point had instructions to pilots and to stewardesses, do not resist a hijacker. That's what the government's rules were. So thanks, government, helping us out again. Ron has always opposed militarism. He's opposed the empire. He wants to bring all the troops home, all of them. Darn right. And of course, this is why, of all the candidates, he got the most support from both active service guys and from veterans, people who understand what's going on, know they're being used as cannon fodder, think they're supposed to only defend our country, not invade and occupy other people's countries. Alone in Congress, he's fought all his time for our rights to take the vitamins and the mineral supplements we want. Against the FDA, against Big Pharma, against all the agencies and companies that would like to oppose us, in cahoots with the government, of course. Ron Paul opposes torture. He opposes these concentration camps. He opposes the idea that the president should be able to assassinate anyone he wants. We now know that Joseph Stalin insisted on signing every death warrant personally because he enjoyed it so much. So I think of Bush and Obama, maybe over breakfast, they're signing the death warrants of who they're going to kill today. It's not the way it's supposed to be. Ron Paul, the only one who stands up for human life. Speaking of human life, he's always been an advocate of human life in terms of opposing abortion, and he has the only bill that would actually do anything good in both parties oppose it, because both parties get a kick out of the contributions they get from the current system, and they get a lot of volunteer activists during campaigns. They don't want to change anything. Ron Paul said, look, Congress has the constitutional right to circumscribe the jurisdiction of the federal courts. So what we should do is take away all federal court jurisdiction over abortion. What that would do is repeal Roe v. Wade and return it to the states.